notes that there were 4 information reports received. The decision-making item is around the regular report you get on Council's top 10 corporate risks, and attached as a reprint of those risks with a track changes version incorporating comments that were made at the corporate and strategic meeting.
Okay, there'll be a few questions, I suspect. Councillor Ramersworth.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I can't see the anything about climate change here, if I've read correctly. It doesn't. It's not mentioned in the subsequent risks. It's not mentioned in the hazards, etc. And I know that Councillor Gilbertson would agree with me that climate change is possibly one of the biggest risks that we're facing in the next 50 years, and I just can't. I'm afraid, Mr. Chair, if it's not included in this, I just can't support this document.
My recollection was that yes, it was discussed at the committee, and it was agreed that a lot of the work that is done under the water quality, land management, water quantity, etc., hazard risks are dealing with climate change issues. Whether or not we need a separate climate change risk, I don't think we made that decision, or council made that decision at the committee meeting.
And if we did, as a specific item, would it make the top 10, I suppose, is the question.
Well,
considering we address it on the way through.
But there would also be a quite substantial overlap with a lot of the other projects.
Mr. Chair, when we discussed that, I actually suggested putting it into the natural hazards, but it's not there, and that's my whole point.
Since we did the work on identifying, and we don't recognise that this is all the risks, these were the top 10, Council's top 10 risks as we have debated a number of times. The operational risk actually refers to health and safety, and since the debate on this, the Pike River findings with the implications that has on any of this have come out, and I understand the Institute of Directors is putting out some quite clear direction to directors on considering how they revise their understanding of their health and safety risks to comply with the findings of the Pike River. Can Mr. Adey please tell me, because this is between these 2 meetings, where we stand in this and when we will actually be considering how we're addressing those issues of liability that are now being raised?
Fair comment. I'm not sure. I'm sure there will be a bit of legal commentary on the responsibilities of councillors as opposed to directors over the next couple of months, and happy to include something in that in the next update associated with that. Yeah.
We've gone through an exercise at council which we go through regularly to assess that we've got the identification of risk correct. How does this not just become a document that then is shoved away until the next meeting when it's taken out and shaken? How much is it actually informing our conduct of our business to meet these risks? How much is of it an active document to guide the way we practice?
Well, certainly we do go through. You can see that there are changes in the commentary around what's been done over the previous 6 months associated with these risks, and that comes back to you. Probably the only one that isn't really dealt with in any detail are the operational risks, and maybe we will have a conversation, or we should have a conversation around the exec table about just how we bring those maybe forward to you in conjunction with looking at the recommendations around the Pike River findings.
Thank you, Councillor McGregor.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Just on the issue of climate change being raised by Councillor Ramswell, potentially this, of course, could be catastrophic to life on this planet in the future. It's a global issue, which doesn't mean to say that we don't have to do our share to do something about it. And one of the ways is to afforest this region, and whether it be biodiversity, commercial forestry, soil conservation, urban amenity, whatever. And that intrudes into a lot of these risks. And I just wonder whether at some point in this exercise just an overarching comment couldn't be made to say that we are conscious of the need to work towards mitigating climate change. That's our duty as a small region on the planet, and and we believe that working towards a greater number of trees in accordance with our other environmental responsibilities is one way of doing it.
Okay, that's a very good question. Councillor Curtin.
Sorry to thrash a theme, and it's around Councillor McGregor and Councillor Rimmel's commentary as well. And I'm looking at issue 5 and issue 6A, and issue 5 talks about the investment portfolio, and issue 6A talks about Ruataniwha as a council investment. And I wonder whether we can be more specific and clear about what we're doing here by changing issue 6A, Ruataniwha Water Storage Scheme, instead of our council investment, to as the council's response to climate change.
Comments on that?
Issue 6, well, so 6A and 6B and 6C were or have been derived from an assessment of risk around council's investment portfolio. So that's the reason for that particular heading. So if there certainly are other benefits to the Ruataniwha Water Storage Scheme, but they could be in another issue.
Well, just on that point, and that's the point I'm making, is that the benefits for the council are the impacts on climate change. You spoke, Ms Lambert, in terms of other benefits. I would suggest the economic benefits are the other benefits. So it's a matter of emphasis. I'd be interested to get feedback from my colleagues as to whether they would be interested in dealing with the water storage project as this council's very, very substantial response to climate change.
Okay, well, everyone's digesting that. Councillor Dick?
Well, I think Councillor Curtin has a point, but I don't know that one could headline that that benefit. I think it should be recognised as one of the benefits. But I mean, we're dealing not just with the implications of climate change, we're dealing with the implications of climate as it is right now. The characteristics of the climate of the East Coast. So I think he has a point, but as I say, I think it's appropriate to reference that benefit in here, but I'm not sure whether it's a headline benefit.
There's a way of dealing with the climate change issue in the recommendation. I saw some very sage words there just before,
Mr.
which
Chair.
I'll just highlight, and then we'll go back to more questions. The top 10 corporate risks assessment, when you get down to number 3 in the recommendations, could read, approves the risk mitigation approach to each of the 10 risk issues as set out and as amended, and ensures that climate change matters are noted in the appropriate risks. And that would cover it.
Thank you, Mr Chair. I was going to prefigure a similar amendment to that recommendation.
It certainly recognises it then.
But I actually think I would like to go a little bit further than that, because it's not just about dealing with the weather patterns that we have, it's also about reducing our carbon dioxide emissions. And there's many ways of doing that, as well as planting trees, as Councillor McGregor has said. And I'd like to also recommend that we perhaps have a paper to Council looking at the latest up-to-date science, looking at the many ways that we can mitigate against global warming and climate change, and what we can do as a council.
Response in the appropriate risk management. Yeah. Mr. Chairman, these are the top 10 risks. We've actually had a chart to us, and we'll ask councillors to recall it, recognising where councils has moved risks from a high risk to a low risk by the intervention that they have taken and the identification of various issues. And we know that there are others sitting down below this, below the top 10, but these are the risks that were identified by council as a whole as being the areas that we were most exposed on, and our response to that. And this is about councils managing council's business. It's not about our views on global issues or anything else. This is council within council's area of responsibilities and how they manage their issues. And we've been through quite an extensive exercise in identifying what those top 10 issues to council are, and I think that there's a paper has come to us. That was the decision that we came to in analysing where we sat with those top 10. So if it's some later date, we should actually consider the overall greater and broader risk area, then that's another business. So I recommend this paper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I certainly don't want to belabour the issue of climate change specifically, because it's one of the risks, but I would say, and I think I do concur with Councillor Rim as well on this, that it is the most preeminent risk we have in that respect in terms of climate and the environment that we've got, and we're currently in the middle of it. It's not something that's going to happen, it's something that is happening, and I think it does deserve, and I do think it does deserve the headline in the context of these risks that we have. I do think it does deserve that headline, and I just want to not to dispute with Councillor Digg on this, but if we could look at Ruataniwha as the example, that is the reason we are doing it, is the risks involved in relation to climate. That is the primary reason. If we weren't doing it, if it was, as it's stated here, as simply as a council investment, then we wouldn't do it, because there's simply not enough long and short-term financial returns for council in the cash sense to justify the course of action we're on. To me, Mr. Chairman, it's much bigger and much broader than that, and I think it does lend itself to be headlined as the council's very, very substantial response to climate change and its impact both on the environment and the economy for the next 50 years. So I wonder whether we can let this sit for a period of time and contemplate that the next time we deliberate on it.